It was a crisp December afternoon, and the bustling private terminal at the New York City airport gleamed with holiday cheer. Travelers rushed to their private jets, arms laden with designer bags and expensive gifts, while cheerful carolers filled the air with festive tunes. Among the holiday travelers stood Vanessa Carter, a poised, elegantly dressed black woman with an aura of confidence. At 32, Vanessa had achieved what many only dreamed of: a thriving tech empire, financial independence, and a jet-setting lifestyle. But today, she was about to face a challenge she thought she had left behind in her humble beginnings. Vanessa had purchased her private jet earlier that year, a sleek Gulfstream G700, christened Wings of Hope. It was more than a luxury for her. It was a testament to how far she had come. Yet, as she approached the gate where her jet was parked, a middle-aged man in a crisp uniform stepped in front of her, his face marked with skepticism. His badge identified him as the head of the crew she had hired. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said coldly, his gaze dropping to her Louis Vuitton luggage. "This area is restricted to private jet owners and their approved guests. You're not allowed here." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, calm but firm. "I am the owner of the G700 parked at Gate 7, she stated, her tone steady but assertive. The man's dismissive chuckle cut through the air like ice. "Sure you are. You don't have to pretend, sweetheart. Whoever owns that jet wouldn't want people like you hanging around it." The word stung, but Vanessa had learned long ago not to let ignorance rattle her. "People like me," she repeated, her voice now carrying an edge. "Let me say this again. I own that jet, and you work for me." By now, others were beginning to notice the interaction. A few passengers paused to observe, their faces reflecting everything from mild curiosity to blatant judgment. The man, emboldened by the audience, refused to back down. "Look, lady, I don't know who you think you are, but unless you have some proof, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this area immediately." As Vanessa reached for her phone to call her assistant, she realized this wasn't just about her ownership. It was about something much bigger, a fight for respect and dignity. Vanessa maintained her composure, though inside she was simmering with frustration. She dialed her assistant, Jordan, a quick thinker who handled everything from schedules to logistics. "Jordan," Vanessa said, her tone crisp, "please connect me to the aviation office and confirm my ownership of the G700 at Gate 7. Jordan, sensing the tension in her voice, replied without hesitation. "I'm on it, Vanessa. Hang tight." While she waited, Vanessa stood tall, her gaze locked with the man who had challenged her. He smirked, leaning slightly to whisper something to another crew member. Vanessa caught the word "impossible" and a muted laugh. She clenched her fists, but years of navigating boardrooms filled with doubters had taught her not to let emotions control her actions. Moments later, Jordan called back. "The documents are being sent to the terminal manager as we speak. I also flagged this incident to their customer relations team. Do you need me to come down there?" "No need, Jordan." "Thank you," Vanessa replied, ending the call. The man crossed his arms, clearly unimpressed. "I don't know what kind of stunt you're trying to pull, but this isn't going to work." Vanessa decided to let silence do the talking. She stepped aside, confident that the proof would soon speak louder than any rebuttal she could offer. In the meantime, she pulled out her phone and began recording the interaction and precaution she had learned to take in situations like these. The murmurs among onlookers grew louder as two officials in black suits approached, carrying a tablet and a folder. They glanced at Vanessa, then at the crew member. One of them addressed the man directly. "Mr. Taylor, we've reviewed the ownership documents for the Gulfstream G700 at Gate 7, the official said, his voice professional but firm. "The aircraft is registered to Miss Vanessa Carter. She is the sole owner." The color drained from Mr. Taylor's face, his smirk replaced by a look of disbelief. "That can't be right," he stammered. "There must be some mistake." "There's no mistake," Vanessa interjected, stepping forward. She looked directly at Mr. Taylor, her voice steady. "I told you from the beginning, this jet is mine. You refused to listen, dismissed me, and made assumptions based on nothing but prejudice. I won't tolerate that." The official turned to Vanessa. "Miss Carter, We deeply apologize for this incident. Would you like to file a formal complaint?" Before she could respond, a young flight attendant, perhaps in her mid-20s, stepped forward, her expression apologetic. "Miss Carter, I'm so sorry," she said softly. "I should have spoken up earlier. I knew this was your jet, but I was afraid of losing my job if I challenged Mr. Taylor." Vanessa softened slightly, recognizing the fear in the woman's eyes. She nodded. "Thank you for saying something now. I understand the pressure, but silence only enables behavior like this." Turning back to the officials, Vanessa took a deep breath. "I don't just want to file a complaint. I want every member of this crew reevaluated. This isn't about one incident. It's about a culture of disrespect and bias that needs to change." The officials assured her they would handle the matter, but Vanessa wasn't done. She addressed the crowd, which had grown noticeably larger. "This is the reality for people like me," she said, her voice carrying strength and conviction. "No matter how successful we become, no matter how much we accomplish, there are still those who will judge us by our skin color instead of our achievement. But I'm here to remind everyone that we belong in these spaces, just like anyone else." The crowd responded with a mix of applause and awkward shuffling. Some looked inspired. Others seemed uncomfortable, as if forced to confront their own biases. With the issue seemingly resolved, Vanessa boarded her jet, accompanied by a new, hastily assigned crew. As she settled into her plush leather seat, she couldn't help but reflect on how the incident mirrored her journey. She had faced doubt and discrimination before, but each time she had risen above it. This time, however, felt different. It was Christmas, a season that was supposed to bring people together, yet here she was, reminded of how far society still had to go. She decided that this incident would not end with her flight. It would become part of a larger conversation about equity, dignity, and the power of standing up for what's right. As the jet ascended into the sky, Vanessa closed her eyes, allowing the gentle hum of the engines to calm her. She had won this battle, but she knew there were many more to fight. The Gulfstream G700 soared over the east coast, the holiday lights below twinkling like scattered jewels. Vanessa gazed out the window, her reflection mingling with the night sky. She couldn't shake the frustration of the encounter, but her mind was already strategizing her next steps. This wasn't just personal, it was systemic, and as someone who had fought her way to success, she felt a responsibility to confront it head-on. As she sipped a cup of herbal tea, her thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of her phone. It was her mother, Dolores Carter, calling from their family home in Atlanta. "Hey, baby," Dolores said, her warm voice immediately putting Vanessa at ease. "Are you on your way? Dinner's almost ready, and everyone's asking about you." Vanessa hesitated before responding, not wanting to alarm her mother. "I'm on the way, Mama. Just had a little hiccup at the airport." "A hiccup? What kind of hiccup?" Dolores asked, her tone shifting to concern. "It's nothing I couldn't handle," Vanessa said with a smile, trying to reassure her. "Just one of those situations where someone underestimated me. You know how it goes." Dolores sighed deeply. "I do, too well. But Vanessa, don't let it ruin your holiday. You've worked so hard to get where you are. Don't let anyone dim your light." Vanessa nodded, grateful for her mother's unwavering support. "Thanks, Mama. I'll see you soon." As the call ended, Vanessa leaned back in her seat, her mind drifting to memories of her childhood. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Atlanta, she had often heard the phrase, "You have to work twice as hard to get half as much." Her parents had instilled in her the value of perseverance, but they had also taught her the importance of using her success to uplift others. This was one of those moments. She pulled out her laptop and began drafting a letter to the CEO of the aviation company that managed her jet crew. Subject: addressing discrimination in your company. Dear CEO's name, I hope this email finds you well. I'm writing to bring your attention to an incident at your private terminal earlier today involving the crew assigned to my Gulfstream G700. As the owner of the jet, I was denied access and treated with blatant disrespect due to assumptions made about my identity. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she detailed the incident, outlining the need for better training and policies to combat discrimination. But as she wrote, her thoughts shifted beyond this single event. She began to imagine the broader impact she could have. A smile crept across her face as an idea took shape. Why stop at a letter? She muttered to herself. This is bigger than me. The jet touched down in Atlanta just before midnight. Vanessa was greeted at the private terminal by her younger brother, Marcus, who wrapped her in a bear hug the moment he saw her. Vanessa, what took you so long? He teased, his playful grin a stark contrast to the weariness she felt. Let me guess, business drama. Something like that, Vanessa replied, chuckling. As they drove through the quiet streets of their old neighborhood, Marcus turned serious. You okay, sis? You seem different. What's going on? Vanessa hesitated before sharing the story of what had happened at the airport. Marcus's face darkened with anger as she spoke, but she could also see the pride in his eyes as she described how she had stood her ground. That's messed up, Marcus said when she finished. But I'm glad you didn't let them get away with it. You're always so calm under pressure. I don't know how you do it. I don't always feel calm, Vanessa admitted. But I've learned that making noise in the right way is more powerful than just reacting. When they arrived at the family home, the warmth and love inside immediately lifted Vanessa's spirits. Her parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins greeted her with hugs and laughter, their voices filling the air like a symphony. The smell of baked ham, sweet potato pie, and collard greens wafted from the kitchen, reminding her why she cherished this time of year. As the family gathered around the dinner table, Vanessa shared the story of her day, careful to emphasize the lessons she had learned rather than the frustrations. Her father, a retired teacher, listened intently before speaking. Vanessa, he said, his voice steady and wise, you've been given a platform that most people don't have. What happened today isn't just your fight, it's the fight of everyone who's ever been underestimated. Don't let this be the end of it. Use your voice. Her father's words stayed with her long after dinner as she sat by the fireplace watching the flames dance. She opened her laptop again, this time to sketch out a plan. It wasn't just about filing a complaint or demanding an apology. She wanted to create something lasting, an initiative to address systemic discrimination in the luxury travel industry and beyond. By the time she closed her laptop, the plan was taking shape. She would call it Wings of Equity, an advocacy program to push for diversity training, representation, and accountability across industries. It was ambitious, but Vanessa was never one to shy away from a challenge. As the clock struck midnight, ushering in Christmas Day, Vanessa felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had turned a moment of indignity into an opportunity for change. This Christmas, she wasn't just celebrating with her family, she was laying the groundwork for a legacy. Christmas morning arrived with the sound of laughter and the rustle of wrapping paper as Vanessa joined her family around the tree. Though the warmth of their celebration lifted her spirits, her mind kept returning to her newfound mission. She had already scheduled a series of meetings to address what had happened, but she hadn't anticipated how quickly her story would spread. As the family gathered for breakfast, Vanessa's phone buzzed repeatedly on the table. At first, she ignored it, focused on savoring the moment. But when her brother Marcus gave her a knowing look and gestured toward the flashing screen, she reluctantly picked it up. Her notifications were flooded emails, texts, social media mentions. One email caught her eye. The subject line read, Urgent, follow-up from Executive Office of Aviation Company Name. Opening it, Vanessa found a carefully worded message from the CEO himself, requesting a private meeting to discuss her experience. Subject, Our apologies and next steps, dear Ms. Carter. I was deeply troubled to learn about your experience at our terminal yesterday. On behalf of our company, I offer my sincerest apologies. We have already begun an internal review of the situation, but I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to meet with you directly to discuss how we can do better. We value your perspective and would like to explore ways to improve our policies to ensure this never happens again. Please let us know your availability. Best regards. CEO's name. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. The email was a step in the right direction, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was about more than damage control. Something about the tone felt too polished, too reactive. Just as she was about to respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news alert. Tech mogul Vanessa Carter calls out racism in private aviation. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't shared her experience publicly, so how had the story gotten out? Clicking on the article, she discovered that someone at the terminal had recorded the interaction and uploaded it to social media. The video had gone viral overnight, showing Mr. Taylor's dismissive remarks and Vanessa's calm yet firm response. The article painted Vanessa as a hero for standing up to discrimination, but it also opened the floodgates to public scrutiny. Comments ranged from supportive praise to vitriolic attacks, accusing her of overreacting or playing the race card. She turned to Marcus, who was scrolling through his phone with wide eyes. "Vanessa," he said, holding up the screen, "you're trending on Twitter. People are calling you the Jet Queen." Vanessa groaned. "That's the last thing I wanted. I didn't ask for this attention, but maybe it's a good thing," Marcus said. "This could give you the platform you need to launch your idea. People are listening now." He had a point, but the spotlight was unnerving. Vanessa had built her career on strategy and careful planning, not viral moments. Now, she had to decide whether to embrace the attention or retreat into privacy. Later that day, Vanessa's assistant, Jordan, called with more updates. "Vanessa, I've been monitoring the situation," Jordan began. "The aviation company isn't just asking for a meeting. They've already announced a new diversity initiative, and they're crediting you for inspiring it." Vanessa frowned. "Without even talking to me first?" "That's not all," Jordan continued. "I've been contacted by a few media outlets. They want interviews. And there's another email you need to see from a woman named Evelyn Hayes. She's the CEO of one of the largest luxury travel firms in the country. She's asking for a meeting." Vanessa sat up straighter. Evelyn Hayes was a trailblazer in the industry, one of the few women, and even fewer black women at the helm of a major corporation. If anyone understood the challenges Vanessa faced, it would be her. "Forward that email to me," Vanessa said, her mind already spinning with possibilities. The next morning, Vanessa sat in a sleek downtown Atlanta office across the table from Evelyn Hayes. The older woman exuded grace and authority, her silver hair pulled back into a neat bun. "Vanessa," Evelyn said warmly, "I've been following your story, and I have to say, I admire how you handled yourself. It's not easy to keep your composure in situations like that." "Thank you," Vanessa replied. "But I have to admit, I'm still figuring out where to go from here." Evelyn nodded knowingly. "I've been where you are caught in the spotlight for something I never asked for. But moments like these are opportunities, Vanessa. They're a chance to drive real change. That's why I reached out." Vanessa leaned in, intrigued. "I'd like to partner with you," Evelyn continued. "You have a voice, a platform, and a story that resonates with people. Together, we could create something powerful, an industry-wide coalition to address bias and inequality in luxury travel. I can provide the resources and connections, but the vision needs to come from you." Vanessa was stunned. This was bigger than anything she had imagined. Partnering with Evelyn Hayes would give her the leverage to turn Wings of Equity from an idea into a movement. "I'm in," Vanessa said, her voice filled with determination. As she left the meeting, Vanessa felt a sense of clarity. What had started as a humiliating incident was transforming into something far greater. She wasn't just reclaiming her dignity, she was paving the way for others to do the same. But she knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be backlash, resistance, and moments of doubt. Yet, as she walked out into the crisp winter air, she felt a deep sense of purpose. This Christmas had given her more than a chance to celebrate with family. It had given her a mission to rewrite the rules, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. The days following Christmas were a whirlwind for Vanessa. The unexpected spotlight brought both challenges and opportunities, each demanding her attention. Her partnership with Evelyn Hayes was moving forward faster than she anticipated, but not everyone welcomed the change. As the announcement of their initiative, Wings of Equity, hit the headlines, the responses were polarizing. Social media was abuzz with hashtags like #JetQueen, #Wings of Equity, and even #PrivilegeCheck, as supporters hailed Vanessa as a symbol of resilience and change. Yet, alongside the praise, there was a steady stream of criticism. "I just don't see why this is necessary," one comment read on a popular business forum. "Luxury travel is about exclusivity. Forcing diversity into it feels misplaced." Another tweet that went viral said, "People like Vanessa Carter have everything handed to them. This is just more victimhood culture." At first, Vanessa tried to ignore the negativity. She reminded herself that detractors would always exist, especially when someone challenged the status quo. But the weight of the criticism began to seep into her confidence. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of back-to-back calls, Vanessa sat alone in her penthouse living room. The city lights glittered outside, but they did little to lift her spirits. Her laptop was open to a scathing op-ed from a well-known business analyst who questioned whether Vanessa's efforts were a publicity stunt designed to expand her personal brand. She closed the laptop with a sigh. "What am I doing, Mama?" she muttered under her breath, feeling the weight of doubt creep in. Dolores, who was visiting for the week, entered the room carrying 2 steaming mugs of tea. She set one in front of Vanessa and took a seat beside her. "You're doubting yourself, aren't you?" Dolores asked, her gaze warm and knowing. Vanessa nodded, her voice soft. "I didn't ask for any of this attention. I just wanted to make things right after what happened. Now it feels like I'm under a microscope, and no matter what I do, someone's going to twist it." Dolores reached out and placed a hand on Vanessa's. "Baby, you've always been the one to fight for what's right, even when it wasn't easy. Do you remember the time your elementary school wouldn't let you into the advanced math program because they didn't think you could handle it?" Vanessa smiled faintly. "And you marched into the principal's office and demanded they test me. I got in, didn't I?" "You got in and you excelled," Dolores said proudly. "But the lesson wasn't just about getting into that program. It was about proving to yourself and to others that you belong. This is no different, Vanessa. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for the people who don't have your platform, your resources, or your voice." Vanessa sat quietly, letting her mother's words sink in. She realized that the backlash wasn't a sign that she was on the wrong path. It was proof that her work was necessary. The next day, Vanessa refocused her efforts. She scheduled a team meeting with Evelyn Hayes and a group of advisors she had assembled to guide the Wings of Equity initiative. The meeting took place in Evelyn's sleek, glass-walled office in downtown Atlanta. Evelyn opened the meeting with a confident smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa and I have been working on a mission that's not just about addressing discrimination. It's about reshaping an entire industry. And we'll need every one of you to help us get there." Vanessa took over, outlining the program's key pillars: diversity training, mandatory workshops for all crew members and staff in private aviation, focusing on unconscious bias and cultural awareness; representation goals, increasing the number of women and minorities in leadership roles within luxury travel companies; accountability measures, implementing systems for reporting and addressing incidents of discrimination. The advisors nodded in agreement, offering their insights on how to make the initiative scalable and impactful. But one voice, belonging to a veteran industry consultant named Greg Hammond, raised a concern. "Vanessa," Greg said, leaning forward, "this is a bold plan, and I respect your vision. But you have to understand there are going to be major players in the industry who see this as a threat to their old way of doing business. They might try to undermine you." Vanessa met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not afraid of resistance, Greg. If anything, it tells me I'm pushing in the right direction." Evelyn smiled approvingly. "That's the attitude we need." As the meeting continued, Vanessa felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that the adversity she faced wasn't a setback, it was fuel. Every doubter, every critic, only made her more determined to succeed. A week later, the first major milestone for Wings of Equity was announced, a partnership with 3 major aviation companies that had committed to adopting the program's training modules. The press release was met with mixed reactions, but Vanessa focused on the victories. One evening, as Vanessa reviewed the day's progress, she received a call from Jordan. "Vanessa, you're not going to believe this. Jordan said, excitement crackling through the phone. You just got an invitation to speak at the Global Aviation Summit in New York. They want you to be the keynote speaker. Vanessa was momentarily stunned. The summit was one of the most prestigious events in the industry, attended by CEOs, policymakers, and innovators from around the world. This is your chance to make them listen, Jordan continued. To show them why this matters, Vanessa smiled, feeling the spark of determination reignite within her. Let's do it, she said. The invitation was proof that her voice was reaching the right ears. The fight wasn't over, but Vanessa was ready for whatever came next. Vanessa accepted the invitation to speak at the Global Aviation Summit, but the opportunity brought new complications. Preparing for the keynote required her full attention, yet the fast-paced rollout of Wings of Equity was demanding more time and energy than she anticipated. With every victory, new challenges seemed to arise. It began with an unexpected phone call from her attorney, Claire Simmons. Vanessa, Claire said, her voice measured but serious. I need you to know that Mr. Taylor, the former crew member who confronted you at the terminal, has filed a defamation lawsuit against you. Vanessa froze. A lawsuit? On what grounds? He's claiming that your actions in the viral video have damaged his reputation and caused him financial harm, Claire explained. It's a weak case, but he's clearly trying to retaliate. This might not go far legally, but it could become a public relations issue. Vanessa sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. She had anticipated backlash, but this felt petty and vindictive. What's our next move? I'll file a motion to dismiss, but in the meantime, I recommend keeping public comments about Mr. Taylor to a minimum. Let me handle the legal side, Claire advised. Understood, Vanessa said, though her frustration lingered long after the call ended. At the same time, tensions within the industry were surfacing. While some companies embraced Wings of Equity, others resisted the changes it demanded. One executive, speaking anonymously to a prominent business magazine, criticized the initiative as disruptive and unrealistic. Vanessa's name became a lightning rod for debates about privilege, race, and progress. Some hailed her as a trailblazer, while others painted her as an agitator, disrupting the luxury travel world for her own gain. I feel like I'm fighting on all fronts, Vanessa admitted to Evelyn during a late-night strategy session in her office. The lawsuit, the resistance from the industry, the constant scrutiny. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but I didn't expect this level of pushback. Evelyn gave her a sympathetic smile. You're not alone in this, Vanessa. Remember, every great change comes with resistance. It's a sign that you're challenging the status quo, and the status quo doesn't like being challenged. Amid the external pressures, Vanessa faced a more personal challenge. Her younger brother, Marcus, approached her one evening with a hesitant expression. Vanessa, can we talk? He asked, fidgeting with his hands. Of course, she said, gesturing for him to sit beside her. I've been thinking about what you're doing with Wings of Equity, Marcus began. It's inspiring, really, but I've also been wondering, what about the people who don't fly on private jets? The ones who face discrimination just trying to get through airport security or buy a commercial ticket. Vanessa paused, surprised by the question. You're right, Marcus. The issues in private aviation are just one part of a much bigger problem. But I had to start somewhere. Changing the culture at the top can create a ripple effect that reaches other areas. I get that, Marcus said, nodding. But maybe there's a way to expand the conversation, to include people who feel like this fight isn't for them, because they'll never step foot on a private jet. His words stayed with Vanessa long after their conversation. Wings of Equity was making waves in the luxury sector, but Marcus was right. There was an entire world of travelers who faced discrimination in everyday travel. Could she expand her mission to include them without losing focus? As Vanessa grappled with these questions, the day of the Global Aviation Summit arrived. The event was held in a sprawling Manhattan convention center, its halls buzzing with energy as industry leaders, innovators, and journalists mingled. Vanessa stood backstage, dressed in a tailored navy suit that radiated confidence. But beneath her polished exterior, she felt a flicker of anxiety. This was the most high-profile stage she had ever stepped onto, and the stakes couldn't be higher. "You've got this," Jordan said, handing her a glass of water. "Just remember why you're here. Speak from the heart." When Vanessa stepped onto the stage, the audience erupted into applause. She took a deep breath, letting the sound settle her nerves. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady. "I stand before you today as someone who has experienced both the privilege and the pain of navigating this industry. Privilege, because I've had the opportunity to build a successful career and live a life I once only dreamed of. Pain, because even at the highest levels, I've been reminded that bias doesn't disappear with success." She paused, scanning the crowd. The room was silent, every eye fixed on her. "Wings of Equity isn't just about diversity training or representation," Vanessa continued. "It's about redefining what it means to belong in spaces that have historically excluded so many. It's about creating an industry where everyone, regardless of their background, feels respected and valued." As she spoke, Vanessa felt her confidence grow. She shared her vision for a more inclusive future, weaving in personal anecdotes and practical solutions. By the time she finished, the audience was on its feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Backstage, Evelyn greeted her with a wide grin. "Vanessa, you knocked it out of the park," she said. But even as Vanessa basked in the moment, she knew the battle was far from over. The summit had been a victory, but the challenges ahead loomed larger than ever. Later that evening, Vanessa sat alone in her hotel room, reflecting on the day. The summit had proven that her voice could command attention, but Marcus's words echoed in her mind. How could she ensure that her mission reached beyond the luxury elite? Vanessa opened her laptop and began drafting a new proposal, an extension of Wings of Equity focused on commercial aviation. It was ambitious, but if anyone could turn ambition into action, it was Vanessa Carter. Vanessa's new proposal for expanding Wings of Equity into commercial aviation marked a turning point. While the luxury travel sector had been her initial focus, the idea of addressing systemic biases in commercial travel spoke to her sense of purpose on a deeper level. But the path forward was anything but simple. Her plan was ambitious: to develop partnerships with major airlines, airport security services, and travel associations. However, entering this new arena brought fresh challenges, not least of which was navigating the emotional toll of balancing her mission with personal relationships and public scrutiny. A week after the summit, Vanessa presented her expanded vision to Evelyn Hayes and their advisory board in a private meeting room overlooking Atlanta's skyline. "Commercial aviation is where we'll see the broadest impact," Vanessa explained, gesturing to the detailed presentation on the screen. "It's where the majority of travelers face discrimination, profiling at TSA, unfair treatment on board, and even disparities in hiring within the industry itself." Evelyn listened intently, but when Vanessa finished, she raised a cautious hand. "Vanessa, I admire your passion, but this is a massive undertaking. Commercial aviation is a beast regulated, heavily scrutinized, and deeply entrenched in its ways. Are you prepared for the resistance this will bring?" Vanessa took a deep breath. "I understand the risks, Evelyn, but if we don't address these issues at every level, we're only solving part of the problem. This is about creating a ripple effect." Greg Hammond, the veteran consultant, chimed in. "I agree with Evelyn. Expanding this initiative might dilute our impact in private aviation. Are we biting off more than we can chew?" Vanessa felt a flicker of frustration, but remained composed. "Greg, I hear your concerns, but I believe that tackling bias on a broader scale will strengthen our message, not weaken it. This isn't about one industry, it's about changing an entire culture." The room fell silent for a moment. Then Evelyn leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful smile playing on her lips. "I think we should let Vanessa try," she said. "If anyone can pull this off, it's her." As the meeting ended, Vanessa felt a mix of exhilaration and doubt. While she had earned the board's tentative approval, the pressure to deliver weighed heavily on her. She returned to her penthouse that evening, craving solace, but instead found Marcus waiting in the kitchen, a frown etched across his face. "What's wrong?" Vanessa asked, dropping her bag on the counter. Marcus hesitated before speaking. "Vanessa, I know you're doing something incredible, but I feel like you're spreading yourself too thin. You're fighting battles on every front: private aviation, commercial travel, even this lawsuit. When do you get a chance to just breathe? Vanessa sighed, pouring herself a glass of water. Marcus, this isn't about me. It's about making sure people like us don't have to fight these battles anymore. I can handle the pressure, but at what cost? Marcus pressed. You barely sleep, you're always working, and now you're taking on even more. You don't have to do it all at once. Vanessa's voice sharpened. I don't have the luxury of waiting, Marcus. Every day that goes by, someone else is treated unfairly, and I can't just sit back and do nothing. Her brother's face softened, but his concern remained. I get it, Vanessa. I really do. But I just don't want you to burn out before you make the change you're fighting for. The conversation lingered in Vanessa's mind long after Marcus left. Was she pushing herself too hard? Was her drive to create change coming at the expense of her own well-being? The next morning, Vanessa met with Claire to discuss the defamation lawsuit. Claire was confident they could win, but her words carried a warning. Vanessa, even if we get this dismissed, the lawsuit is a distraction, Claire said. You need to stay focused on your mission, not on petty attempts to derail you. Vanessa nodded, but the thought of the lawsuit gnawed at her. It wasn't just about the legal process, it was about the narrative it created. She hated the idea of being painted as an opportunist or a troublemaker, even if she knew it wasn't true. Amid the external pressures, Vanessa's emotional resilience was further tested when an unexpected visitor from her past resurfaced. Late one evening, she received a call from Nicole Wright, her childhood best friend. Vanessa, it's been so long, Nicole said warmly. I saw you on the news, and I just had to reach out. You're doing amazing things. Hearing Nicole's voice brought a wave of nostalgia. The two women had grown up together in Atlanta, but their paths had diverged when Vanessa pursued her tech career and Nicole became a public school teacher. I've missed you, Nicole, Vanessa said, smiling despite the weight on her shoulders. How have you been? As they caught up, Nicole's admiration for Vanessa's work became clear, but she also shared a candid perspective. You know, Nicole said gently, I've always looked up to you, but I worry about you too. You've always put so much pressure on yourself to fix everything. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders alone. Vanessa paused, her friend's words striking a chord. It's just, when you've been given so much, it feels wrong not to use it to make a difference, she admitted. Nicole chuckled softly. And you've always been the one to make a difference. But remember, even superheroes need to recharge. That night, Vanessa found herself staring at the city skyline. Nicole's and Marcus's words replaying in her mind. They both cared about her, but could she afford to slow down when so much was at stake? As the lights of Atlanta twinkled below, Vanessa made a silent vow. She would find a way to balance her drive with her well-being. But for now, the fight was far from over. The next phase of Vanessa's mission unfolded with increasing complexity. While she worked tirelessly to expand wings of equity into commercial aviation, new obstacles emerged that threatened to derail her progress. Each challenge seemed to carry hidden layers, as if someone or something was deliberately working against her. One chilly January morning, Vanessa sat in a meeting with her growing team at Wings of Equity headquarters, a sleek office space in downtown Atlanta. The group was discussing a major breakthrough. A prominent commercial airline, Skylux Air, had agreed to pilot their diversity training program. It was the kind of victory that Vanessa had envisioned when she first conceived the initiative, and it brought a glimmer of hope. This is huge, Jordan said, his excitement evident. Skylux Air sets trends in the industry. If their program succeeds, other airlines will follow. Evelyn, who was present via video call, nodded. Agreed. But Vanessa, you need to keep an eye on the details. A lot of companies agree to these partnerships for the optics, not the substance. Make sure they're genuinely committed. I'll handle it, Vanessa said confidently. We'll keep them accountable every step of the way. Just as the meeting wrapped up, Vanessa's assistant entered the room, her expression tight with concern. Vanessa, I think you should see this, she said, handing over a tablet. On the screen was a breaking news article. Wings of Equity faces criticism amid allegations of financial mismanagement. Vanessa's stomach sank as she skimmed the piece. It claimed that a source close to the initiative had raised concerns about improper allocation of funds, implying that Vanessa was using donations to finance her personal lifestyle. "This is ridiculous," Vanessa said, her voice sharp with indignation. "Our financials are airtight, and I haven't taken a single dime from donations." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Evelyn's face on the video call was set with concern. "Vanessa, you and I both know this isn't about facts. It's about perception. Who benefits from painting you as dishonest?" Vanessa's mind raced. Could the lawsuit from Mr. Taylor be part of a coordinated effort to discredit her? Or was this backlash from within the industry a pushback from those threatened by her work? Determined to get ahead of the narrative, Vanessa called an emergency meeting with her PR team. Together, they crafted a statement that outlined Wings of Equity's transparent financial practices and pledged to release detailed records to the public. But as the accusations spread online, it became clear that the damage was already being done. Vanessa's social media feeds became battlegrounds. Supporters rallied behind her, but critics latched onto the allegations, using them to question her credibility. One particularly scathing post read, "Another fraud hiding behind activism. Vanessa Carter is just another rich woman looking for attention." The words stung, but Vanessa refused to let them break her resolve. That evening, as Vanessa prepared for another long night of strategizing, she received an unexpected email. The sender was anonymous, but the subject line stopped her in her tracks. "They're watching you, against her better judgment." She opened it. The email contained a single sentence: "Be careful who you trust. Not everyone on your team wants you to succeed." Vanessa stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. She quickly forwarded the message to Claire, her attorney, and Evelyn, attaching a note. "Have either of you seen anything suspicious? Could this be a hoax?" Evelyn replied almost immediately. "Could be a scare tactic, but don't ignore it. Let's keep this between us for now." Claire followed up shortly after. "I'll investigate, but don't let this distract you. Keep your focus." But the warning nagged at Vanessa. Who could the email be referring to? Her team was small but loyal, or so she thought. The tension escalated the next day when Vanessa arrived at the Wings of Equity office to find a small group of protesters outside the building. They held signs with phrases like "Fraud Queen" and "Stop Dividing Us." A few journalists hovered nearby, snapping photos and shouting questions. Vanessa entered the building with her head held high, but inside, she felt a growing unease. Once in her office, she called a team meeting to address the situation. "We need to find out who's behind these allegations," Vanessa said, pacing the room. "This isn't just about money. Someone's trying to sabotage our work." Jordan spoke up. "I've been digging into the news articles and social media accounts pushing this story. A lot of them seem to be connected to a PR firm that works with, wait for it, Aerolux Aviation." Vanessa froze. Aerolux was one of the largest luxury aviation companies in the world, and one of the few that had publicly criticized Wings of Equity. "That can't be a coincidence," Evelyn said, her voice sharp through the speakerphone. "They're scared of what we're doing. If this is coming from them, it's more than sabotage, it's a calculated attack." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Then we need to fight back, and we need proof." Jordan, keep digging. If Aerolux is behind this, we're going to expose them. As the days passed, Vanessa's team uncovered more clues linking Aerolux to the smear campaign. Payments to anonymous blogs, suspicious activity on social media, and leaked internal emails painted a damning picture. But Vanessa knew that going public without ironclad evidence could backfire. Meanwhile, the anonymous emails continued. Each one offered cryptic warnings and veiled threats, deepening Vanessa's sense of paranoia. Late one night, as she worked alone in her penthouse office, another email arrived. This one was different. It included an attachment, a blurry photo of Vanessa meeting with Evelyn and several Wings of Equity board members. The caption read, "Keep your enemies close." But do you know who your real enemies are? Vanessa's heart raced. The photo had been taken in a private meeting room. Someone on her team was leaking information. But who? The stakes had never been higher. Vanessa wasn't just fighting for her reputation or her initiative. She was fighting against forces determined to see her fail. And now she couldn't even be sure who was on her side. As she stared at the email, one thing became clear. The battle ahead would test her resolve like never before. Vanessa's world had become a storm of pressure and uncertainty. The smear campaign, the anonymous emails, and the possibility of a traitor within her inner circle weighed heavily on her mind. But even amidst the chaos, she refused to give up on her mission. Wings of Equity was more than a program. It was her stand against systemic injustice, and she wouldn't let fear or sabotage undo her progress. Still, the cracks in her relationships began to show. The tension from the growing threats was taking a toll, even among her most trusted allies. The morning after receiving the latest cryptic email, Vanessa called an emergency meeting with her leadership team, Evelyn, Jordan, Claire, and Greg Hammond. The atmosphere was tense as Vanessa projected the photo from the email onto the conference room screen. "This photo was taken during one of our private board meetings," Vanessa said, her voice firm but tinged with frustration. "That means someone in this room or someone close to us is leaking information." The group exchanged uneasy glances. Evelyn leaned forward, her expression serious. "Vanessa, I understand your concern, but we need to tread carefully. If you start pointing fingers without evidence, you could alienate the very people who are trying to help you." Claire nodded in agreement. "I'll have a cybersecurity team trace the source of these emails. In the meantime, let's focus on containment. We can't let these distractions derail the program's momentum." Greg cleared his throat, his tone measured. "Vanessa, I've been in this industry a long time. This level of resistance means you're onto something big, but it also means you're making powerful enemies. Whoever is behind this wants you to second-guess your team. Don't let them win." Vanessa listened, her instincts telling her to trust them. But the doubt lingered. Later that day, Vanessa met with Jordan privately. "Jordan, you've been with me since the beginning," she said, searching his face for reassurance. "Do you think I'm handling this the right way?" Jordan hesitated, then nodded. "Vanessa, you've always been a fighter, and that's what makes you a great leader. But I do think you're carrying too much on your own. You've got to lean on your team more, or this will break you." Vanessa sighed. "I know you're right, but it's hard to let go of control when everything feels like it's falling apart." Jordan gave her a small smile. "You don't have to do it alone. Remember, you hired us because we believe in your vision. Let us help you carry it." As Vanessa tried to steady herself, Marcus arrived at her penthouse unannounced that evening, holding a box of takeout and a 6-pack of sparkling water. "Thought you might need a break," he said, grinning as he set the food on the table. Vanessa smiled despite herself. "You always know when to show up." Over dinner, Marcus brought up the anonymous emails. "Vanessa, have you considered that whoever's behind this might not be in your inner circle, but could be watching from the outside?" "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, her interest piqued. "Well," Marcus said, "you've been in the spotlight for weeks now. People are watching your every move, supporters, critics, and everyone in between. It wouldn't be hard for someone on the outside to create chaos, just to see you stumble." Vanessa hadn't considered this angle, and it gave her a flicker of clarity. "You're right. I've been so focused on looking inward that I haven't thought about external threats." Marcus leaned back, his expression serious. "You need to start thinking like a chess player, sis. Whoever's behind this is making calculated moves. You've got to stay one step ahead." The next day, Vanessa decided to follow Marcus's advice. She hired a private investigator, someone outside her usual circle, to quietly look into the source of the emails and the smear campaign. The investigator, a seasoned professional named Leila Brooks, brought a fresh perspective to the situation. During their first meeting, Leila asked probing questions that made Vanessa rethink her assumptions. "Who stands to gain the most from discrediting you?" Leila asked. "Aerolux Aviation is the obvious suspect," Vanessa replied. "They've been critical of Wings of Equity from the start." "Maybe," Leila said thoughtfully. But what about someone closer to home? Competitors in the tech industry, perhaps? Or even someone within the luxury travel sector who feels overshadowed by your partnership with Evelyn Hayes? The possibilities made Vanessa's head spin, but Leela's next question hit even harder. Have you considered that the emails might not just be about sabotage? Leela asked. Sometimes threats like these are personal. Jealousy, revenge, even old grudges, they can all manifest this way. Vanessa froze, her mind flashing to Nicole Wright, her childhood friend who had recently re-entered her life. Nicole's words of support had seemed genuine, but could there be hidden resentment beneath the surface? No, Vanessa said firmly, shaking the thought away. Nicole wouldn't do that. She's one of the few people I trust completely. Leela raised an eyebrow. Trust is important, Vanessa, but so is vigilance. Don't rule anything out. As the investigation progressed, the tension within Vanessa's team began to bubble over. At the next board meeting, Evelyn voiced concerns about the growing distractions. We're losing focus, Evelyn said bluntly. Every minute we spend chasing these threats is a minute we're not advancing the program. Vanessa, we need to prioritize. Vanessa bristled, but kept her composure. Evelyn, I understand your frustration, but this isn't just about me. These threats undermine the credibility of everything we're trying to build. If we don't address them, they'll erode trust in the program itself. The debate grew heated, with Greg and Claire weighing in on opposite sides. As the voices around the table rose, Vanessa felt the weight of leadership pressing harder than ever. Finally, she raised a hand, silencing the room. Enough, she said firmly. We're going to handle this on two fronts. Leela will continue investigating the threats, while the rest of us focus on the work. We can't let this divide us. The room quieted, but the unease lingered. Vanessa knew that the fractures in her team wouldn't heal overnight. Later that night, Vanessa received another email from the anonymous sender. This one contained a single line that sent chills down her spine. You're getting closer. Be careful, this isn't just about business anymore. The stakes were no longer just professional. Whatever or whoever was behind these threats was playing a dangerous game, and Vanessa was determined to win. Vanessa's life had become a maze of uncertainty, every move shadowed by threats and intrigue. Her private investigator, Leela, was closing in on the source of the anonymous emails and the smear campaign, while Vanessa fought to keep Wings of Equity on track. But the closer they got to uncovering the truth, the more dangerous the situation became. One morning, as Vanessa was preparing for a keynote address at a prominent aviation conference in Washington, D.C., Leela called with an update. Vanessa, I've traced the emails to a proxy server that's frequently used by high-profile clients to conceal their digital activity. It's sophisticated, but I've found a pattern, Leela said. I'm 90% certain the source is connected to Aerolux Aviation. Vanessa clenched her jaw. So, they're trying to sabotage me to protect their market share. That tracks. There's more, Leela continued. I've uncovered a financial connection between Aerolux and a PR firm that's been planting stories against Wings of Equity. But the real twist is this. Someone on your advisory board has been in contact with Aerolux executives. Vanessa felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath her. Someone on my board? Are you sure? Positive, Leela confirmed. I'm still digging, but the evidence points to Greg Hammond. Vanessa's heart sank. Greg had been one of her most vocal supporters, but his skepticism about expanding into commercial aviation now felt suspect. Thanks, Leela, Vanessa said, her voice steely. Let me know as soon as you have definitive proof. Ending the call, Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her thoughts racing. Could Greg really be the mole? Or was he being used by Aerolux without his knowledge? Later that afternoon, Vanessa stepped onto the stage at the aviation conference, her usual confidence tempered by the storm brewing behind the scenes. The audience of industry leaders and innovators was eager to hear her vision for the future of equitable travel. Good afternoon, Vanessa began, her voice clear and commanding. Today, we stand at a crossroads in the aviation industry. We have the opportunity to build an inclusive future, one where everyone, regardless of their background, feels welcome and valued. The crowd responded with applause, but Vanessa noticed a few skeptical faces among the executives. She pressed on, determined to make her case. "Change is never easy," she said, "but it's necessary. And it starts with all of us in this room." As she spoke, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Ignoring it, she finished her speech to a standing ovation. But when she stepped backstage, she saw several missed calls from Jordan, along with a text that read, "Vanessa, we have a problem. Call me ASAP." Back at her hotel, Vanessa called Jordan, who wasted no time getting to the point. "Vanessa, someone leaked an internal memo from Wings of Equity to the press. It outlines our proposed funding structure for the Commercial Aviation Initiative, and they're twisting it to make it look like you're using donations to line your pockets." Vanessa's stomach churned. "How bad is it?" "Bad," Jordan admitted. "The story's already trending. We're working on a statement, but it's clear someone is trying to discredit you ahead of the announcement. With Skylux Air, Vanessa knew this wasn't a coincidence. The timing was too precise. She called an emergency meeting with Evelyn and Claire, sharing Leela's findings about Greg's potential involvement. Evelyn's face darkened. "If Greg's working with Airlux, he's not just a liability, he's a threat to everything we've built." Claire, ever the strategist, nodded. "We need to act fast. Confront him, but make sure we have evidence before going public. If we accuse him without proof, it'll backfire." The next morning, Vanessa requested a one-on-one meeting with Greg at the Wings of Equity office. She had rehearsed the conversation in her head, but nothing could prepare her for the tension in the room. "Greg," Vanessa began, keeping her tone measured, "I've recently received information that concerns me. It suggests that someone on our team has been in contact with Airlux. I need to know if there's any truth to this." Greg's expression shifted, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. "Vanessa, are you accusing me of something?" "I'm not accusing anyone," Vanessa replied. "I'm asking for honesty. Have you been in contact with Airlux?" Greg hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I've spoken with their executives a few times. They reached out to me, concerned about how Wings of Equity might impact the industry. But I've always had your best interests in mind." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you tell me about these conversations?" "I didn't think it was relevant," Greg said defensively. "I'm on your side, Vanessa. You know that." But Vanessa wasn't convinced. "Greg, if you've been sharing our plans with Airlux, that's more than a conversation, that's betrayal." Greg stood, his face flushing with anger. "I've given everything to support this initiative, and this is the thanks I get? Accusations and mistrust. Trust is earned, Greg," Vanessa said, her voice cold. "And right now, I don't know if I can trust you." Greg stormed out, leaving Vanessa with more questions than answers. That night, Leela sent Vanessa a detailed report confirming Greg's involvement with Airlux. Payments had been made to an account linked to Greg, and emails revealed his role in leaking information to sabotage Wings of Equity. Vanessa felt a wave of betrayal and determination. Greg's actions weren't just a personal attack, they were an attack on her mission. She called Evelyn and Claire to discuss the next steps. "We're going public," Vanessa said firmly. "If Airlux and Greg think they can stop us with lies and sabotage, they're about to learn who they're dealing with." As Vanessa prepared to expose the conspiracy, the anonymous sender struck again with a new message. "They're not done yet. Watch your back." Vanessa stared at the email, her resolve hardening. The conflict had reached a boiling point, and the battle ahead would determine not just the future of Wings of Equity, but her reputation, her safety, and her vision for change. Vanessa knew that the moment had come to confront the forces working against her. Armed with Leela's findings and her team's support, she devised a strategy to expose both Greg and Airlux while ensuring that Wings of Equity remained untarnished. The stakes were higher than ever, but Vanessa was determined to reclaim control of the narrative and her mission. The next morning, Vanessa held a private meeting with her core team, Evelyn, Claire, Jordan, and Leela. The tension in the room was palpable as Vanessa outlined her plan. "We need to act quickly and decisively," she began. "Greg's betrayal is no longer a question. We have evidence of his financial ties to Airlux and proof that he leaked confidential information. But this isn't just about Greg, it's about the larger agenda to dismantle Wings of Equity. If we expose Aerolux without solid backing, they'll bury us in legal red tape and spin the story in their favor. Evelyn leaned forward, her expression resolute. So what's the play? We'll hold a press conference tomorrow, Vanessa explained. We'll release Leela's findings, including the financial documents and emails that tie Greg and Aerolux together. But we'll frame this as more than a defense. It's a call to action for transparency and accountability in the aviation industry. Claire nodded approvingly. It's risky, but it could work. The key will be controlling the narrative. We need to position Wings of Equity as the solution to the very problems Aerolux represents. What about Greg? Jordan asked. Have you spoken to him since your last meeting? Vanessa's jaw tightened. No, and I don't plan to. His actions speak for themselves. Once this goes public, he'll have to answer for what he's done. As Vanessa prepared for the press conference, she received yet another email from the anonymous sender. You're close, but the game isn't over. They'll fight back harder than ever. Vanessa forwarded the email to Leela, but this time, the warning only fueled her determination. She refused to be intimidated. The following day, the press conference was held in a sleek event space in downtown Atlanta. Dozens of journalists packed the room, their cameras and microphones poised to capture every word. The energy was electric, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Vanessa stepped onto the stage, exuding calm confidence despite the storm brewing around her. Evelyn and Claire flanked her, their presence a silent show of solidarity. Good afternoon, Vanessa began, her voice steady. Today, I want to address the recent allegations against Wings of Equity and provide clarity on the forces working to undermine our mission. She paused, meeting the eyes of the audience. This isn't just about me. It's about the systemic issues that plague our industry's bias, exclusion, and a resistance to change. And when you challenge these systems, you'll face pushback. But I refuse to let that stop us. Vanessa then presented the evidence Leela had uncovered. Bank transfers from Aerolux to Greg's account, email exchanges plotting the smear campaign, and records of coordinated attacks on Wings of Equity. Each revelation drew audible gasps from the crowd. To Aerolux and those who stand with, Vanessa said, her voice firm, know this. Your attempts to silence me, to discredit this initiative, have failed. Wings of Equity will continue to push for a more inclusive and equitable future, and we will not be intimidated. The room erupted into applause, punctuated by shouted questions from reporters. Vanessa answered a few carefully selected inquiries before stepping down, leaving Evelyn and Claire to handle the rest. While the press conference was a clear victory, Vanessa knew the battle wasn't over. That evening, she received a call from Leela. Vanessa, I have an update, Leela said. Greg isn't the only one working with Aerolux. I found records indicating that someone inside Skylux Air has been feeding them information about your partnership. Vanessa's breath caught. Skylux had been the crown jewel of Wings of Equity's progress, the first major airline to adopt their training program. Who is it? Vanessa asked, her voice steady despite the sinking feeling in her chest. It's someone high up, Leela replied. The leak came from a senior VP who's been vocal about his opposition to the program internally. Aerolux likely used him to undermine your credibility while trying to sabotage Skylux's involvement. Vanessa closed her eyes, absorbing the weight of this revelation. If Skylux backed out, it would deal a major blow to Wings of Equity's momentum. What do we do now? Vanessa asked. Leela's voice was resolute. You confront them directly. Bring this to Skylux's CEO and force them to take a stand. If they're serious about supporting you, they'll clean house. If they're not, then they were never really on our side. Vanessa finished, her voice hardening. The next morning, Vanessa arranged an urgent meeting with Skylux Air CEO Jonathan Ellis. The two met in a sleek boardroom overlooking Manhattan, tension crackling in the air. Jonathan, Vanessa began, sliding Leela's report across the table. This is what I've uncovered. One of your senior VPs has been working with Aerolux to undermine our partnership. I need to know where you stand. Jonathan's face darkened as he reviewed the documents. This is deeply troubling, he said. I had no idea this was happening. Your support has been instrumental to Wings of Equity, Vanessa continued. But if you don't take immediate action, this partnership is over. Jonathan looked up, his expression serious. Vanessa, I assure you, Skylux is fully committed to this program. I'll deal with this personally. Vanessa nodded, her resolve unwavering. Good. Because this fight is bigger than either of us. If Skylux wants to be on the right side of history, it starts here. As Vanessa left the meeting, she felt a surge of determination. The battles she had faced had pushed her to the brink, but they had also revealed her strength. The climax of this journey was drawing near, and Vanessa was ready to see it through to the end. Vanessa had laid her cards on the table, exposing the conspiracy against her and demanding accountability from Skylux Air. But the tension only escalated as Airlux Aviation responded with a full-force counterattack. That same evening, an inflammatory article appeared in a major business publication, accusing Wings of Equity of being a divisive force in the aviation industry. The headline read, "Can Equity Fly? Vanessa Carter's crusade sparks chaos in luxury travel." The article painted her as a disruptive figure, implying that her initiative was causing unnecessary turmoil and alienating industry leaders. It included a quote from Aerolux's CEO, thinly veiled as diplomacy but dripping with condescension. While we fully support diversity and inclusion, Vanessa Carter's approach seems more focused on stirring conflict than creating solutions. Aviation needs unity, not division. Vanessa read the article late at night, her chest tightening with frustration. Just when she thought she had turned the tide, Aerolux had doubled down on their efforts to discredit her. The next morning, during a meeting with Evelyn and Claire, the tension in the room was palpable. Evelyn slammed the article onto the table. "This is a blatant smear campaign," she said, her voice sharp, "and they're getting bolder. If we don't respond, they'll control the narrative." Claire nodded. "We need a strategy that counters their claims without making you look defensive. The last thing we want is to play into their hands." Vanessa leaned forward, her gaze steely. "I'm done playing defense. It's time to go on the offensive. What do you have in mind?" Evelyn asked. Vanessa's voice was firm. "Aerolux claims they want unity, but their actions speak louder than their words. We're going to expose their hypocrisy, and we're going to do it on a global stage." Vanessa's opportunity came sooner than expected. She was invited to speak at an upcoming United Nations panel on equity in global industries. The panel, part of a major international conference, was the perfect platform to highlight Wings of Equity's mission while addressing the systemic challenges she was fighting to overcome. As she prepared for the event, Vanessa worked closely with her team to craft a speech that was equal parts inspiring and unflinching. She wanted to call out the forces working against her while reaffirming her commitment to change. But the pressure of the moment weighed heavily on her. Late one evening, as she rehearsed her speech in her penthouse, Marcus stopped by unannounced. "You're working late again," he said, setting down a takeout bag on the kitchen counter. "Thought you might need some fuel." Vanessa smiled faintly, grateful for his presence. "Thanks, Marcus. I've got this big panel coming up, and I need it to be perfect." Marcus sat across from her, studying her face. "You're carrying a lot, sis. But you know what? You've already won in so many ways. Look at what you've built. Wings of Equity is bigger than just you now. It's a movement." Vanessa sighed, her eyes softening. "I know, but if I don't see this through, everything we've fought for could crumble." "I can't let them win." "You won't," Marcus said with quiet confidence. "You've come too far to back down now." The day of the panel arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Delegates from around the world filled the grand hall, their attention focused on the speakers who would take the stage. Vanessa was the final panelist, and by the time her name was called, the room was electric with expectation. Dressed in a sleek, emerald green suit, Vanessa stepped onto the stage, radiating confidence. She took a deep breath, scanning the audience before beginning. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice resonating through the hall. "Today, I want to speak not just about equity in aviation, but about the courage it takes to challenge deeply ingrained systems." She recounted her journey with Wings of Equity, the obstacles she had faced, and the importance of creating spaces where everyone felt they belonged. Then, with calculated precision, she addressed Aerolux's smear campaign head-on. There are those who claim to support equity while working behind the scenes to undermine it, she said, her tone steady but cutting. They hide behind words like unity and stability to mask their fear of change. But make no mistake, progress is not the enemy of unity, it is the path to it. The audience erupted into applause, but Vanessa wasn't finished. She used the platform to announce a new partnership with Skylux Air, a move that signaled her initiative's resilience and growth despite the attacks. We are proving that equity is not only possible, but essential, Vanessa concluded. And for those who fear this change, let me say this: the future will not wait for your comfort. The speech was a resounding success, with media outlets worldwide praising Vanessa's poise and conviction. Skylux Air's CEO issued a public statement reaffirming their commitment to wings of equity, and other airlines began reaching out to express interest in joining the initiative. But as Vanessa returned to her hotel room that evening, exhausted but triumphant, she received a final email from the anonymous sender. Well played, Vanessa. But don't get comfortable. They're regrouping. Stay sharp. Vanessa stared at the message, her jaw tightening. The battle might not be over, but for the first time, she felt certain that she could face whatever came next. That night, as she gazed out at the city lights, Vanessa allowed herself a moment of reflection. The journey had tested her in ways she never imagined, but it had also shown her the depth of her resilience. Wings of Equity was no longer just an initiative. It was a beacon of hope, a force for change, and a testament to what could be achieved through courage and conviction. And Vanessa Carter was just getting started. The world seemed to pause as Vanessa stood at the pinnacle of her fight for equity. Her speech at the United Nations had sent ripples across industries, solidifying her as a leader in the push for inclusivity and fairness. But with every victory, Vanessa knew she was still navigating dangerous waters. The anonymous emails, the betrayal from Greg, and Aerolux's relentless opposition hung in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. The next morning, Vanessa returned to Atlanta to an outpouring of support. Messages flooded her phone, congratulations, invitations to speak, and endorsements from allies she hadn't expected. Even so, the anonymous sender's latest warning loomed in her mind. She needed answers now more than ever. In a final meeting with Leela, the private investigator presented her last finding. Vanessa, we've confirmed everything on Aerolux's end, Leela said, sliding a thick folder across the table. The payments to Greg, the PR smear campaign, even evidence that their CEO personally approved strategies to undermine Wings of Equity. But there's one more thing you need to know. Vanessa leaned forward, her heart pounding. What is it? There's a second mole, Leela said gravely. And it's someone even closer to you than Greg. Vanessa's stomach dropped. Closer? How is that possible? Leela hesitated before continuing. It's Jordan. The words hit Vanessa like a punch to the chest. Jordan? No, that's impossible. He's been with me from the start. I understand how hard this is to hear, Leela said. But I've traced communications from Jordan's personal email to Aerolux's legal department. It appears he was feeding them updates on your partnerships and internal decisions. My guess? They offered him a payout. Or maybe they threatened him. Vanessa sat in stunned silence. Jordan, her right-hand man, the person she trusted most, had betrayed her. Later that day, Vanessa called Jordan to her office. The atmosphere was tense, and as he entered, Vanessa could see the unease in his eyes. Jordan, she began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Have you been in contact with Aerolux? Jordan froze, his face a mix of guilt and panic. Vanessa, I can explain. Her chest tightened, but she kept her composure. Then explain. Jordan exhaled shakily. It started a few months ago. They approached me, said they just wanted updates to monitor their competition. They offered me money, and I thought it wouldn't hurt anything. But then they started asking for more details about our plans, our partnerships, and I realized it was bigger than I thought. Vanessa's voice hardened. Why didn't you come to me? I was scared, Jordan admitted, his eyes welling with tears. I didn't want to lose everything we've built, and I didn't think they'd actually try to take you down like this. Vanessa, I swear, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Vanessa's heart ached at his words, but trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. Jordan, do you have any idea what you've done? Your actions nearly destroyed this initiative. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed everyone who believes in this mission. Jordan's voice broke. I know, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. Please, Vanessa, give me a chance to fix this. Vanessa stared at him, her emotions warring within her. Finally, she spoke, her tone resolute. If you're serious about making this right, you'll work with Leela to provide a full account of your communications with Aerolux. We're going to use your information to finish what they started. Jordan nodded, his face etched with regret. I'll do it. Whatever you need. Armed with Jordan's confession and Leela's findings, Vanessa launched her final counterstrike against Aerolux. She filed a lawsuit against the company for defamation, corporate sabotage, and interference with her business relationships. The move made headlines, casting Aerolux as the villain in a fight they could no longer spin in their favor. Simultaneously, Vanessa and her team rolled out the next phase of Wings of Equity, expanding partnerships with airlines and travel associations worldwide. Skylarks Air, in a show of solidarity, announced a public commitment to the program, pledging additional resources to ensure its success. The tide was turning, and Vanessa could feel the momentum shifting back in her favor. On the day the lawsuit was filed, Vanessa held a press conference to address the public. Standing before a packed room of journalists, she spoke with unflinching honesty. Today marks a turning point, not just for Wings of Equity, but for every individual and organization fighting for inclusion and fairness, she began. We will no longer allow fear and intimidation to silence us. We will hold those who perpetuate injustice accountable, no matter how powerful they may seem. As the room erupted in applause, Vanessa felt a deep sense of triumph. The journey had tested her in ways she never imagined, but she had emerged stronger, more determined, and more certain of her purpose. That evening, Vanessa returned home to find Marcus waiting for her with a bottle of champagne. You did it, he said, grinning as he popped the cork. Vanessa smiled, a weight finally lifting from her shoulders. We did it, and this is just the beginning. They toasted to her victory, to Wings of Equity, and to the future. They were building one where equity wasn't just a dream, but a reality. As Vanessa sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The battles she had fought had pushed her to the brink, but they had also revealed her strength and resilience. The anonymous threats, the betrayals, the public scrutiny, it had all been worth it to see her vision come to life. And as her phone buzzed with new messages of support and opportunities, Vanessa knew she was ready for whatever came next. As the dust settled, Vanessa finally found a moment to pause and reflect on the journey that had tested her spirit and sharpened her resolve. Wings of Equity had not only survived the relentless attacks, but emerged stronger, gaining widespread support across industries. For Vanessa, this wasn't just a personal victory, it was proof that change was possible when courage and conviction met opportunity. A month after the lawsuit against Aerolux was filed, Vanessa sat in a meeting with Evelyn and the Wings of Equity leadership team. The boardroom buzzed with optimism as they reviewed the latest updates. Skylux's expanded partnership is rolling out smoothly, Evelyn reported, and we've had inquiries from 3 additional airlines looking to adopt our training programs. Vanessa, your unspeech was a turning point. Jordan, who had worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by his betrayal, spoke up next. I've also been coordinating with Leela on the Aerolux lawsuit. Their legal team is scrambling to respond, and public opinion is overwhelmingly on our side. They're going to settle, it's just a matter of time. Vanessa nodded, her expression calm but thoughtful. While she appreciated the progress, the scars of the past few months lingered. Trust had been shaken, and the lessons she'd learned about leadership, resilience, and the cost of progress ran deep. As the meeting wrapped up, Evelyn pulled Vanessa aside. You've done something incredible here, Evelyn said, her voice filled with admiration. "But I know it hasn't been easy. Have you thought about what's next for you personally?" Vanessa hesitated. "I've been so focused on the fight, I haven't really stopped to think about myself. But I know I can't keep this pace forever." Evelyn smiled. "Change takes time, Vanessa, and you've already laid a foundation will outlast any one person. Don't forget to take care of yourself too." That evening, Vanessa returned to her penthouse to find her family waiting for her. Dolores, Marcus, and a few close cousins had gathered for a surprise dinner to celebrate her recent wins. The dining table was adorned with candles, flowers, and Vanessa's favorite dishes, filling the space with warmth and love. "You didn't think we'd let all this success go without a celebration, did you?" Marcus teased, handing her a glass of sparkling cider. Vanessa laughed, the weight of the past months momentarily lifting. "I should have known. You've always been the best at throwing surprises." As they ate and reminisced, Dolores raised a toast. "To Vanessa," she said, her voice steady with pride. "You've shown the world what strength, grace, and determination look like. But more than that, you've shown all of us that no matter where you come from, you can create change. We're so proud of you." Vanessa's eyes welled with tears as she clinked glasses with her family. The path hadn't been easy, but moments like this reminded her of why she had fought so hard in the first place. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, Vanessa sat alone by the window, looking out over the city. Her mind drifted to Wings of Equity's future. The initiative had grown far beyond her original vision, with new partnerships forming and plans to expand into sectors beyond aviation. But Vanessa knew it was time to start thinking about her own next steps. The fight for equity wasn't over, but she had reached a point where she could trust her team to carry the torch forward. Pulling out her laptop, Vanessa began drafting a plan for the next phase of her career. She wanted to mentor young leaders, invest in underrepresented entrepreneurs, and advocate for systemic change on a global scale. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. It was an email from the anonymous sender who had haunted her for months. "Congratulations, Vanessa. You've proven them wrong. Now go create the world you've always dreamed of." Vanessa stared at the message, a mixture of gratitude and intrigue washing over her. Whoever had sent those emails had been both a warning and an ally in disguise, pushing her to stay sharp and vigilant. Though she might never learn their identity, she knew one thing for certain: she had come out stronger for it. The next morning, Vanessa stood in front of a classroom at a community center in Atlanta. The room was filled with young students from diverse backgrounds, eager to learn from someone who had walked a path they could only dream of. "Good morning," Vanessa said, smiling warmly. "My name is Vanessa Carter, and today I want to talk about how we can all make a difference no matter where we start." As she spoke, she saw the spark of hope and determination in their eyes. This was her next chapter, empowering others to take the fight further, to dream bigger, and to challenge the systems that held them back. Vanessa realized then that her journey was far from over, it was evolving. Wings of Equity had been the start, but her true legacy would be the lives she touched and the doors she opened for others. And as the class erupted into applause, Vanessa felt a deep sense of peace. The world might not change overnight, but with every step forward, progress was being made. Vanessa's story reminds us of the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against us. If you've been inspired by her journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of empowerment and transformation. And check out our next video to see how Wings of Equity is expanding into new industries, proving that change is always possible. Together, we can build a better future. Thank you for watching.